welcome to SVG-TV's news for Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. I'm Triska Campbell with the details. Prime Minister Dr. Afghan Salves has noted with concern the decreasing birth rate in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Speaking on the issue at a recent news conference, the Prime Minister said that while there is a revolution taking place with more women focusing on their careers, this may have contributed to women delaying pregnancies. He therefore expressed a desire to see more career women getting pregnant to help the increase of the population in the country.
Because of our successes in education and great opportunities for women and the whole thrust of modernity, that women, particularly between 25 and 35, we need them to have a few more children because the population, the birth rate is falling. It's supposed to have 2.1 on an average to keep the population going. I'm talking practical things, otherwise the civilization will wither. We have to replenish the population, and the population is stagnant.
The Prime Minister, however, noted that the issue of teenage pregnancy needs to be closely monitored.
And it's getting older, and I'm very happy that it's getting older, people living longer, but we have to have it being replenished. And they can't be replenished by people from Mars. They have to be replenished by real flesh and blood women. It doesn't matter how many different kinds of subdivision of genders people want to have. Nobody has figured out a way other than women having children. That's the reality. Of course, one of the things we have to make sure is that those who are teenagers, that few of them should have children, trying to avoid that. And those who are more mature and who are getting on with their profession, but they have to, it's a problem, I know, to balance your professional life with life of motherhood, but this is how the civilization has to find a way of replenishing itself and advancing.
The decline in the birth rate and the issue of young women engaging in criminal activities are two internal challenges that the Prime Minister said are affecting development in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The world is in turmoil, and the small island developing states, SIDS, are facing additional challenges because developed or powerful countries are playing politics with people's lives and not addressing the fundamental matters of humanity. This is the view shared by Prime Minister Dr. Afghan Salves at a high-level meeting on mobilization of resources for SIDS at the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States taking place in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda.
Until we do that, the discussion which we are having about what is going to happen tomorrow and the day after tomorrow is like you're carrying the fool a little further. Please, let's get the ODA what you promised. Let's get the 100 billion that you promised. Let's stop the vulgarity that you set up a loss and damage fund and it's not being funded. A fund which has no money is an oxymoron. And then, of course, instruments which are supposed to assist us through either that we must not harden the terms. If we walk away with those things today, tomorrow, I can have a discussion on Bridgetown Initiative the day after tomorrow. But we are going up the long escalator, playing with fire. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, in an address at a plenary meeting of the conference on Tuesday, St. Vincent and the Grenadines' Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, Carlos James, told the gathering that SIDS, or Small Island Developing States, are often debating the Sophie's choice between sustainable development and rebuilding from ravages of natural hazards. Joining a chorus of calls for the reform of international financial architecture, including the Bridgetown initiatives, Minister James pointed out that small island developing states in the Caribbean spend a significant portion of their capital on recovery from devastating impacts of climate change and natural hazards instead of sustainable development programs such as education and healthcare.
This conference must be a call to action. It is an opportune time for the international community to fully commit to addressing the special case for sustainable development of small island developing states in light of our unique and particular circumstances. It is therefore concerning that the International Development Association (IDA) expressed its intention to reduce significantly the concessional terms of its loans to certain small economies, all of which are among the most vulnerable countries in the world. These intended actions will no doubt adversely affect life, living, and production for developing countries. Mr. President, this year St. Vincent and the Grenadines' ambitious national budget was implemented on accelerating the Sustainable Development Agenda. This was backdropped by recovery efforts following the devastating COVID-19 pandemic, the explosive eruptions of our Lassafré volcano, and tropical storm Brett. Our government's focus was placed on building economic sustainability through people-centered investments in transformative development projects and programs. As a result, this year, our country allocated over 92 million towards environmental protection, with many of our infrastructure projects being related to fighting the effects of climate change and building resilience. For Caribbean SIDS, a significant portion of our capital estimates is spent on recovery from devastating impacts of climate change and natural hazards. This impacts on our efforts to ensure improvements in the quality of life for our citizens in education, healthcare, and our attempts to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We simply cannot continue without the actionable outcomes necessary to support the development agenda for small island developing states.
Minister James further told the gathering of world leaders that while they recognize that the return to growth is constrained by multiple factors that demand urgent attention, with the main factor being finance, SIDS access to finance remains severely limited. This is largely due to burdensome, complex, and rigid requirements and limited technology capacities that exacerbate the situation facing SIDS.
In this vein, it is imperative that we highlight among the major calls today the need to scale up climate action and support, including climate finance, in line with existing commitments and obligations under the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Excellencies, facilitating the implementation of national disaster risk reduction strategies and support for regional mechanisms is of paramount importance to SIDS. SIDS are often debating a Sophie's choice between sustainable development and rebuilding from the ravages of natural hazards. As a first step, enhancing concessional development finance is critical to pursue the sustainable development objectives. The implementation of the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, MVI, as a reform tool in addressing access and eligibility criteria and measures of need is of vital importance, and we urge support of the MVI by the United Nations, international financial institutions, and multinational development banks alike. Further consideration should be given to the Bridgetown initiative, which calls for the reform of the global financial architecture, addressing the liquidity challenges among SIDS while offering comprehensive solutions to the financing needs of climate vulnerable countries. We also recognize the evidence-based policy making and development financing cannot be severely hindered by data gaps International partners and the UN system must support progress in modernizing national statistical systems. And of course, we welcome the establishment of a SIDS data hub that would assist in monitoring and reporting on the implementation progress of the ABUS over the next decade and offer regional and country-specific data services for SIDS.
Prime Minister Dr. Afghan Salves on Tuesday, May 28th, officially received the Order of the Rising Sun from the government of Japan. Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Japan, H.E. Hosaka Yasushi, presented the Order of the Rising Sun Award on behalf of his country. Dr. Gonsalves says he is humbled by the award and received it on behalf of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. On Monday, April 29, 2024, the government of Japan announced its conferment of the High National Decoration of the Grand Cordon of the Order of the Rising Sun. This announcement in Japan was swiftly followed by a letter of congratulations from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Japan, Her Excellency Yoka. The Order of the Rising Sun was established in 1875 by the Japanese Emperor. In its design, there is a central feature of the rays of sunlight from the rising sun. This symbolizes energy as powerful as the rising sun. The high award to our Prime Minister is that of the Grand Cordon of the Order of the Rising Sun. Prime Minister Dr. Afghan Salves raised a number of matters at a recently held news conference, but not without repeatedly taking jabs at opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday. He repeatedly called out to the opposition leader for erecting the crime statistics billboard, referring to him as the Canadian from Beckway who has a dual citizenship.
Yeah. What I do know, which I repeat and finally hear, the Canadian who happened to be born in Beckway put up a billboard against the planning laws for all right-thinking people would see, even his NDP people, is to see if he could influence media people who are from overseas. People wouldn't come so that sandals would be a flap. People will suffer. Why? Because all he knows about is negativism. And if you have a Canadian passport, if you have a Vincentian passport in your back pocket, and as he said in Parliament, and his Canadian passport in his front pocket proudly, he didn't use the adverb proudly about the Vincentian one in the back pocket, you know. The only one he proud about. Let me say so, you know, he says so.
My patriotism is unquestioned. That's the response from Leader of the Opposition, Dr. Godwin Friday, to Prime Minister Dr. Afghan Salves, who during a recent news conference repeatedly referred to him, to Dr. Friday, as the Canadian from Beckway. According to Dr. Friday, it is a strategy of device politics that the Prime Minister, who is also the leader of the Unity Labour Party, engages in.
It's a typical Ralph Gonsalves approach of the divisive politics. If any part of the country you come from in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you're entitled to be involved in the public affairs of the country. I serve my country. I have no apologies to make to anybody, and certainly my patriotism is unquestioned. I give all my heart and my soul to my country, because I love my country. That's in Vincent and the Grenadines. That's where I was born. I was born here. You know, when I want to get a birth certificate, I go down to the registry and get one. It has a parrot on it.
Dr. Friday said the Prime Minister has yet to address serious matters affecting the country, such as crime. He said the Prime Minister's rants are all distractions.
The point that I'm making is that this is all distraction. It has nothing to do with the seriousness that are confronting the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If Ralph Gonsalves wants to go and talk about these matters to seek to distract people, as they are doing here now with you as a serious journalist, then he can do so. I will continue to deal with the problems that are of concern to the people of this country.
President of the Public Service Union, Elroy Boucher, is questioning why St. Vincent and the Grenadines remains under a public health emergency 1 year after the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 pandemic over. The public health emergency came into effect with the COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. At a news conference yesterday, Boucher said the Minister of Health needs to address the matter.
People have suffered. They have suffered health, and they have suffered financially, and they continue to suffer. And for a government that refuses to acknowledge the suffering it has brought on people, it's the most callous type of behavior that you have seen in a very long time. Dr. Gonsalves have a way of asking the people for forgiveness at certain times. And I commend him on that. Because you need to get to the point where you're humble enough to recognize that you have wronged people. But the one thing that he needs to ask for forgiveness for is this vaccine mandate. Not him alone. Him, along with his entire cabinet, including the CMO, all of them need to ask the Vincentian public for forgiveness for what they did.
Boucher noted people are still being asked to get vaccinated, which he feels is uncalled for at this time.
I asked the government why. Why is this the case? And I really find it difficult in understanding what reason they would have for still doing that. So the persons who want to work in the Ministry of Health, especially at the hospital, the student nurses who want to go into that field, they have to be vaccinated. Even at a time that we are seeing we are now seeing some of the adverse effects that are happening with respect to the very vaccine, they have to be vaccinated. Can that be right?
The Ministry of Health is continuing its battle with chronic and non-communicable diseases and their prevalence in SVG. In an interview with the Agency for Public Information, the API, family nurse practitioner Sister Roxanne Ladle Joseph said though the health officials are doing their best, health is a shared responsibility and urged parents to start addressing the issue of proper nutrition and adequate physical activity in the prevention of diabetes, noting that the ministry has observed a trend of inactivity among children, which in turn leads to unhealthy body mass index or BMI and weight.
That we have to start with our children, because you would find parents quote unquote spoil the little ones in terms of what they give them to eat, in terms of their long periods of inactivity, and we see the trend coming from the small ones in terms of their BMI, their weight, and so forth. And we are saying that type 2 diabetes, it's chronic. So it starts from way back when, and it would proceed. And remember, we just talked about the non-modifiable, the thing that we don't have any control over in terms of our ethnicity, in terms of our family history. So we have to start somewhere. And I am really encouraging us to start with our children, our younger folks, because we are responsible for them.
In other news, since the decline of the banana industry, the Ministry of Agriculture has been grappling with the vagaries of climate change, addressing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and dealing with the aftermath of the volcanic eruption. However, Minister of Agriculture Siboto Caesar stated that his department has been searching for a set of crops to replace the space left by the banana industry. Minister Caesar stated that so far the ministry has seen an exponential increase in the production of dasheen in the country.
There are several marketers in the region and internationally who are participating in the exportation of dasheen from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We intend over the next 6 months to work with the producers of peppers so that we can have enough not only for local consumption, for the value addition, for the processing, but also for export. Last week I attended the 8th ministerial meeting for the OECS, and this was held in Montserrat. And at that meeting, we addressed the issue of the OECS FAST strategy. And one of the main objectives of the FAST strategy is to establish in the OECS an aggregated platform whereby we can work with technicians throughout the OECS, the farmers in the different member states, so that we will be able to aggregate different crops for exports. For persons who are following this program at one time, you remember that the geese boat will come to Grenada, then to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, and then Dominica, and it will collect the produce from these islands and export to the United Kingdom. We want to recreate a platform like that, and we have seen the commitment from the different stakeholders in the sub-region, and we anticipate that by the month of August, we will be able to launch this program.
Additionally, Minister Caesar stated that local farmers have been struggling due to the extremely dry weather over the past few months. He said a drought assessment is slated to commence to provide an evaluation of how the drought has affected local farmers.
That we can take a note and do an evaluation as to how the drought impacted on the farmers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am asking for the farmers to be very forthright, to work with their extension officers so that they can obtain the information which is provided. There are persons who will come to the different farms, but we are going to have at the different agriculture stations the forms which are to be filled by the farmers. So I anticipate that we are going to see a significant uptake in terms of the activities over the upcoming days. The process of the drought assessment is expected to last a period of 2 weeks, and we are going, when we conclude the assessments, to address the issue of what support that we can provide to the farmers.
Meanwhile, Trade Development Specialist Jai Rampasad said hot peppers show tremendous potential in SVG. Rampasad stated that they have observed a demand in the domestic markets where hot pepper sauce and pepper-based products are currently imported into SVG. Rampasad briefly discussed the production and diversification of hot peppers in the agriculture sector during an interview with the Department of Agriculture.
We have seen a tremendous opportunity for the farmers and producers to capitalize on this market for processors, for the caterers, and for the very vibrant tourism industry. We're also looking, as the production evolves, to look at the regional and international markets as well. We're seeing with the success and the progression of the Dasheen that definitely the agriculture sector and this diversification strategy does have tremendous potential for the industry. So we look forward to continued support. We have heard the calls from the processors and from the markets that they want these hot peppers. The quality is there, the markets are there, and we look forward to your participation.
Despite the decline in the pepper sector, St. Vincent and the Grenadines remains one of the Eastern Caribbean's major producers. According to Dr. Umaradat Marharja, an expert in agriculture finance and assessment, would produce a business investment profile for the sector that is anticipated to be bankable.
More importantly, from my perspective, is really to ensure that farmers again understand the cost of production, and we are looking, of course, at specific varieties, more so the Moruga Red, which, of course, as you know, is more flesh, more flavor, and of course has a relatively high demand, perhaps because of those attributes, and of course the visual appeal in the international market. What will come out of this assessment in terms of agricultural finance will again produce a business investment profile which we hope will be bankable. meaning that farmers wishing to come into production, expand production, can use this tool to leverage their opportunities either for access to credit finance or of course to influence policy decisions of the minister and his cabinet to support farmers in any way that is feasible. And I think that overall, there's a range of activities supporting these value chains will lend greater support in positioning this country as being a major supplier of agricultural products to the Caribbean.
The room stock here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is expected to be further increased with a proposed 12-bedroom luxury apartment building comprising of 4 one-bedroom units, 4 two-bedroom units, and a world-class medicinal spa service located in Villa. At the groundbreaking ceremony today, Vision of Villa Views, Dr. Arusha Campbell Chambers explained that the project will cater to both tourists and residents seeking a combination of relaxation, rejuvenation, and luxury accommodations, which carries an estimated cost of construction at approximately $1 million.
Our mission is to provide an exceptional and personalized experience for guests, combining luxury accommodations with comprehensive medical spa services, fostering a tranquil and rejuvenating retreat in the picturesque setting of Villa. We have our natural beauty. I'm so excited. So Villa Views targets middle income and affluent individuals and groups seeking a vacation experience that prioritizes wellness and relaxation. So there are several primary target markets. These include couples who are seeking a romantic getaway, wellness enthusiasts who are seeking a rejuvenating retreat, corporate executives seeking a relaxing escape, groups seeking a luxurious and private retreat, long-term stays as well for medical students, consultants, vacationers, and digital nomads.
In his address at the ceremony, Executive Director of Invest SVG, Glenn Beach, noted that when one thinks about investment opportunities, they often think internationally. However, he noted that opportunities are available locally and regional as well.
Everybody's excited about Sandals. Everybody's excited about Marriott Resorts coming in, the Holiday Inn. But one of the things we take for granted is local and regional investment. And the great thing about what Arusha is doing, it takes into consideration both. It's local investment. I mean, Jamaica isn't as nice as here, but it's regional. It's regional investment. Also, so it ticks both boxes, and I think somebody said earlier today that sometimes it was you, Arusha, sometimes we look so much to overseas that we don't realize what we actually have within St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we have potential, we have excitement, we have something that is unique. I consider, Pastor Darren, don't hold this against me when I say it, I consider St. Vincent and the Grenadines the virgin of business in the Caribbean, because we have so much to offer that's untouched and untapped.
Villa Views is expected to be managed by an experienced team of expertise in hospitality, wellness, and Medi-Spa operations.